Pinay Insight here on Pinay TV. I'm your host, Thelma Sugay. This week's episode is about the court hearing that takes place September 30th on the Roque versus Weber. We have a few characters that you will be meeting through us. We're not able to bring our cameras inside the courtroom for obvious reasons, but we will tell you as we will be there with Nikki, my very honored and very trustworthy cameraman, inside the courtroom without our equipment. But we will have Consul Maynard to answer the questions of the supporters on the Roque side. Obviously, they still feel that they are underserved, although the consulate office has tried to give them the feeling of support through that last meeting they had at the consulate office with the Roques themselves, with us, the pressmen, as well as with some LA cops from the Olympic and Rampart Division. So now, we are excited because I will personally meet Weber for the first time. And I don't meet in a friendly kind of way, but I will witness him in court. I will meet the DA Kim for the first time. Rojas I have met previously. She is the defender of the Roque family. So let's see what this show ends up with. We'll be right back here on the Stop the Asian Hate campaign, brought to you by a grant from the California State Library in collaboration with the Burlington Community Services and Housing Development. We'll be right back.
Thinking of premeditated violence, perhaps even of killing someone? Your thoughts cannot be ignored or unheard. LifeTarget.org has links to over 400 services ready to help you now. LifeTarget can help you find a proxy, someone always there to help you overcome your thoughts of violence, anger, and hate. Don't let your negative emotions take control. Your loved ones and your community need the positive side of you. You're not alone. LifeTarget has your back.
We're still here at the Van Nuys Courthouse, and now we have a representative from the Philippine Consulate Office. We have Consul Maynard. Consul Maynard, thank you so much for coming. You have given hope to this community by showing up. Obviously, we are hoping for the full support of the Philippine Consulate Office.
You have it.
And we heard it here. We have it. The form of support, of course, they need, and I know you're not at liberty to discuss that because you're not authorized. You don't know what's going on. Okay, but it's obviously, just to be on the record, is the financial support. So I think they've actually also sent a letter to the Philippine government, because I know our funds here is not as big as it should be. It's the Department of Foreign Affairs that the letter needs to go to the Roque family. This guy is trying to help us with the process. And then what does that entail? Just a breakdown of the costs?
Breakdown of the cost, the purpose of it, and then basically we're justifying why funds are needed. And then it goes through the process in my Department of Foreign Affairs for their approval.
Who is the head of the Foreign Affairs?
Secretary.
Secretary, so it has to be addressed to Secretary.
Yes.
Do you have?
We don't really have to address it to him because it goes through us, and then
To you.
we will be the one who will be forwarding it to them.
Do you know if the Roques have done that far?
No, they haven't really sent us a breakdown.
Submitted or anything? Okay, so we will let them know through this video, and then I think we're waiting for the Roques before we further maybe. Is that okay with you? Are you a little uncomfortable? I know I said I wasn't going to ambush you and ask you questions that made you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah,
but
the approval system is not with us.
Of course.
We will just send it to Manila from there.
Okay.
With the explanations to the purpose.
Yes.
And then it's up to Manila to decide.
How long is that process usually?
It depends because we here in the US we haven't really had an experience of requesting for funds because there's a system already here in the Public Defender's Office or
So you
organizations that have provided funds. But,
yes.
you know,
Tagang
my-
migrante po.
No, but
we
it's okay.
discussed
Let me finish.
Yeah, it depends. Like my experience is requesting funds from the Middle East.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you.
Ah, okay.
Because I know he has experience in terms of assistance to nationals in the Middle East.
Okay, that's your background.
Yeah,
Is
that's
it
his
any
background.
different from how we do it
So
here?
much different in terms of types of cases that we have, in terms of the types of legal assistance that is available for Filipinos in that country or in those countries. It's a much better situation here in the US where there's again lawyers who can provide their services and there are organizations such as the ones that we see here today
Yes, po.
who can provide a system of assisting the victims.
Yes. My question is, are you then trying to say if that they start with the local funding if they can? Is that usually, even in the Middle East, is that the process? Since there's a public defender or there's a public fund for, so are you saying please start there and then follow up, or can we do it simultaneously?
You can do it simultaneously.
Okay.
It's not like we're going to wait for the person or the victims to be like completely out of options here locally.
Yes, po.
But again, the proving authorities not with us here at the consulate level.
Oh, you saw this?
And
Has
based on your
that been the
experience,
case ever since?
Yeah, always.
That's the standard
we don't
procedure.
have the money. We don't have the
Okay.
money here in the consulate.
Right.
So the money has to go through the Department of Foreign Affairs.
okay, some Middle East. Talk about the Middle East with your experience there. How long was the process by the time they apply, and then we're talking about the Middle East. Okay.
Your
Go ahead.
experience.
Your experience in the Middle East.
How long did
My
it take?
experience is like it depends also. Again, if it's just for funding for requesting for shipment of remains, for example.
Oh, okay.
And then that's an easier process because it's basically just a calculation. What are the funds?
So it's usually after the incident, likely ongoing.
Oh no, there
legal
are
thing.
also some legal cases. There are some posts that have hired a legal recruiter. So because there are so many cases involved.
And we have a concerned citizen. This lady, not related to them. I will call her Miss K because I want to protect her identity. But she just came because she was moved by emotion when she read and heard about the story. Where did you hear about the incident?
Well, I saw it on the news, and I'm also part of API Rise, an organization for Asian Pacific Islander Reentry Inclusion Support Empowerment, and through another organization. But when I saw it on the news, I'm half Filipino.
What's the other half?
I'm half Hawaiian.
Nice.
But when I saw it, had that been my mom,
You're still soft.
I'm just letting you know I wouldn't. Had that been my mom, it doesn't matter what nationality you are. Like, people work hard to come to this country. Had that been my mom, had I been there, it would have went a whole different way.
Okay, we will try to calm this lady. We'll be right back after a few reminders here on Pinay TV.
She's back. She's smooth. And she's throwing a party. Saturday, November 5th at the PCH Club. Groove with Heidi Tan's Smooth Grooves Party Night. Feel the good vibes as Heidi Tan performs classics and her own original smash hits.
Love again, the kind that makes me live. Love again.
Heidi Tan, performing with international guitarist Michael Garvin, saxophonist Marcus Adams, Craig Samuels, and Jamin Laws. One night of smooth grooves. Saturday, November 5th at the PCH Club with Heidi Tan. Doors open at 6:30 p.m. For tickets, click HeidiTanMusic.com or TicketTailor.com. Don't miss Heidi Tan's Smooth Grooves Party Night.
I have my favorite person here, Dr. Jeffrey. Hi, a health psychologist and author. And now you've actually inspired your children to do the same. You mentioned that last week. But it takes a fine man like this man to really have his children believe in what it is that you do, that they find it necessary to continue your work or a similar work, a similar path in their own way.
I feel like, Thelma, it's really, as a white man,
Yes.
it's really my job to do everything I can to dismantle racism. I don't think it's the responsibility of people of color who have been victimized by racism to have to be on the front lines of that battle. It's me who's a part of a group and a history that has benefited from hurting others that I feel like has to be the voice at the cutting edge of that work.
Again, a sign of a fine man. That was so modestly said, sign of humility. But has anyone ever accused you of being privileged?
Of course, and it's not an accusation, it's a truth. I have the benefit
I
of
like that.
a man, of being
Someone who owns up to it too.
The question then is, what do I do with that privilege? Do I share my power? Do I give my power away? Do I hush in meetings and create space for the voices that need to be included in conversations? To invite a safe space for everyone to enter?
And that you have done.
I strive, Thelma, I'm in progress.
Oh my goodness, yes, aren't we both? And I've watched you and I have learned, and so far everything you've taught me when I apply them has worked. Humility, keeping my mouth shut when I really feel like lashing out. Because it's so much harder to take back
That's correct.
something that's already come out of these lips. These lips try to be good, but sometimes it can't help itself. And speaking of which, an acquaintance, I just met him not too long ago, had shared with me a story, and I really was hoping I could do more to help him. Allowed me to share his story as long as I don't divulge who he is, as he's still thinking about his next steps. He has been a chef for the royal family, very skilled. He has worked like anyone has worked, sweat, long hours, very little pay. He's paid his dues. And practice, training, hard work has gotten him to a point where he finally got offered a job as an executive chef. Good money. He was excited, he was hopeful, and he thought, this is the job where I'd probably like to retire in. Up until he wasn't too happy. Lasted all of a month. Because he's, I'm not gonna say rather new to LA, but he's more comfortable speaking in the vernacular, in the Filipino language, and he's in English. He had been called out and said, how can you lead people if you sound the way you do? That accent is so heavy. No one's going to respect you. And according to him anyway, he thought that the boss actually threw a box of pizza at him at one point. Although he said the garbage was right next to me, so he could conveniently say, I was trying to shoot for the garbage bag or basket that was right next to you. So that's a hard thing to define or prove. But as a result, he fell ill and then later found out it was COVID. You know, stresses lead up to an unhealthy state. And then on top of that, he was probably exposed to someone with COVID. And he would not believe that he had COVID, asked him for proof. And HIPAA. I don't have to tell you. If I do, you take my word for it. I don't have to show you records. I can show it to my HR if I need to, but I don't need to show it to you. So questioned why he was away or was taking off for 5 days when he was saying, I need to quarantine. Usually you have to take 10, and he was just saying, just give me 5. Let me just get that. I don't want to infect other people and be contagious. And finally, it was just way too much for him. And he turned in his resignation. There were like other stuff, like there's name calling. There was shaming. There was almost a reference to his gender, because he is gay and openly gay. And so it's like, no, you have an accent, you have a peculiar lifestyle, and just shaming. And so my first question I asked him was, did you have a close enough co-worker who would vouch? Because unfortunately, all of them were beholden to him, because that's who gave them their evaluation every quarter. And although they felt bad for him, could not really do much. It's again back to, what do you do as a bystander? And then when he looked at the records, because he actually brought it up to HR, apparently he had a previous case of something similar, of insulting and abusing and bullying. But this boss is so good at what he does that he just keep on changing, bringing him to different facilities and just sweeping it under the rug, under the carpet. What is the correct saying? Sweeping it under the carpet.
Under the rug.
Under the rug, okay. And so, which brings me to my point. When is enough? Again, he was conflicted about whether or not to report. And then they did sort of something else. They used a little carrot and said, listen, I know you resigned, but there's another opening in another facility. Would you like to take that? And of course I'm saying to him, don't, because then if you take that, then they'll say, he's okay, look, he got another job from us, he took another position. And obviously because of the need, because we need to make money to survive, he sort of said yes to the job. As he was about to start, they said, sorry, we hired someone else. And so now, thankfully, because he is as talented as he is and skilled at what he's doing, he's gainfully employed, but had to take a demotion. So he's now back to being a sous chef as opposed to an executive chef, because he can't even use them as reference, obviously. Although the screening process before they hired him was so tedious, as in they made him cook for the owners on a whim, and he floored them. That's why he got hired as an executive director. But that's, like you said, practice makes perfect. He's been doing it so long for the royalty, which are obviously have very keen standards. And so it's just sad. It's a sad story. I told him, maybe call Gloria Allred. She'll take your case. I tried to refer him to a couple of lawyers. They both felt, because it is a big company, and they were working on contingency, that they walked away from it. So they didn't want to take on a giant, and so he's left on his own, just managing. I don't know if there's a statute of limitation to how long you can actually pursue a case as strong as his. At the same time, obviously it's his life and not mine. And even if I want him to report and do the right thing and get some compensation for all his heartache and headaches and just the injustice done to him, he ultimately has to make that choice. Agree? I want to hear it from you.
Yeah.
You always bring us such wisdom.
Well, I'll do my best. This is a really painful story to hear. And it's painful because how common I fear it is. When we think about how many people are in positions where they are maltreated, where they're harassed, He was in some ways fortunate, within the misfortune, that he was able to step away from the job. Lots of people are dependent on that income and not able to so easily get other positions.
You're right.
So I am happy that he was able to take care of himself, to
For a
do
month.
something for at least a month.
For at least a month.
Yeah, for his
I think he needed
dignity.
more than that, but it just, people live paycheck to paycheck, and it's just difficult. A month is, as it is way too long sometimes. To really.
The bad news here, Thelma, is that, and I'm a psychologist. I
Yes.
understand people and change.
Yes.
Deep down, we're really not able to change other people. We're not able to change other people unless they're willing, ready, and able to change themselves. And so, harshness and the cruelty of these owners or bosses
Yes. Will always be there.
will always be there unless somehow they, are doing some inner work, right, for healing.
Right.
But what is left is this gentleman's dignity. What he
Yes.
does control are his thoughts and his reactions and his boundaries. I think that it's important to be able to accept the fact that there are times where we will not be able to match the power of those who are haranguing so easily, right? It will take a kind of advocacy. It will take perhaps legal channels if those are open. I'm not really able to comment so much on that, but I do believe that the victims of harassment and racial hate must take care of each other, and we must invite people to do the best they can to find their own inner sources of strength and support, encouragement, and forward movement.
I actually have an update. The Roque family, talk about courage. They're now getting the attention outside of the Philippine Consulate Office being involved. Dr. Phil had them on his show.
No way.
And the LA Times picked it up, their story. So now it's gaining international and national attention. Now they have a fighting chance. Because in the beginning, they were saying, everyone we talked to says it's a hard case to prove. Because even if there were Asian scholars, it's his word against mine, because it's a he said, she said situation. And to this point, even if Weber had a dark past and had a history of bad behavior, it still could be okay with a slap on the back of the head. And that's going to brutally hurt them. So I am hoping, because of the news on LA Times and being on Dr. Phil's show, that we're gaining some traction. But I'm so glad it started here.
That's right.
But yes, go ahead.
So a couple of minutes ago, I said something pretty pessimistic, right? Like, will these people ever be able to change? If there is hope, it's actually this work. It's the sharing of stories in the newspaper, on Dr. Phil's show, on the work that we do here.
Yes.
Because we never know when we will, with empathy, hear another person's story
Right.
and then enter into the inner reflection and work about how we're treating one another.
our show, we have with us, of course, my favorite co-host, Dr. Jeff Ring, a health psychologist who has made it his life work to provide equality in healthcare. He has worked so hard to bridge the gap when it comes to racial diversity. Jeff, welcome again.
Nice to see you, Noah. Happy to be here.
Yes, always a joy to see you. Well, this week we're tackling sort of another sad story. It's from an anonymous sender. An elderly lady was on the subway, and as she was coming down, getting on the escalator to head back to her office, which is quite a steep escalator, she got pushed down by, I'm gonna guess, I'm hoping it's somebody who's mentally unhealthy. And there's no explanation for it. And so this has now caused her to be out of work. Ever since that incident, she filed for disability. But it's one of those unreported hate incidents, again, for fear of retaliation. Talk to me about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'm just so sorry to hear about the ways that people are so hurt in their lives, just trying to go around about her day, just trying to get to her office. I attended a webinar online by this group I love, Right to Be, about Asian hate.
And what is the group called?
Right to Be.
Oh, yes. Yes. We learned a lot from them in the past shows.
A lot from
So,
them.
yes, so talk to me about
They talked about 3 different categories of racial maltreatment. Like in the least severe, it's really about staring at someone or stepping away from them. It might be about asking, like, where are you really from?
Because they want to see what your ethnicity is.
Something like that.
Is that pretty offensive for other people?
Of course it's offensive.
Okay.
Especially if you're
guilty as charged. Sometimes I'm just curious. I don't mean harm, but that's good to know.
Right, and people feel judged. And where are you from? Like, they may be from Santa Monica, right?
Right.
It's not a fair. It's an invasive question.
Okay.
So those kinds of things are on the scale the least intrusive.
Okay.
In the middle are like hurtful jokes, shaming or humiliating someone.
Sarcasm,
absolutely. Maybe like calling it a Chinese virus.
Oh, yes.
Right? These are things that are in the middle of the hurtful.
Mm-hmm.
In the most severe is the example we're talking about today, and others that we've spoken about. Getting pushed, getting hurt, assaulted, verbal harassment. These are the most severe. So what I thought was very interesting and important, what I learned in that webinar, was that a very important part of our work is actually, if we observe this, if we're in the presence of it, is to actually do our best to heal and connect with the person who's the victim.
As a bystander?
As a bystander. To check in, are you okay? To say, can I sit with you for a little bit? Is there something that you need? An event like that is going to wreak a lot of havoc for her physically and emotionally. But as bystanders, we can have a kind of healing presence and effect in trying to ameliorate or sort of delay some of the intensity of that assault. So it seems to me like that's an important part of our conversation, right? We may not be able to apprehend the person that did the crime, but we may have incredible power as members of a community to take better care of one another.
To give them comfort, at least.
To give them comfort, at least.
You know, on the other side, I don't know if you heard about this, and I think this happened in New York just this week. An Asian came up on a train or on a bus. I think it was a bus. He got spat on by a female. Don't even know what the race is. I believe, if I recall it correctly, it was Caucasian. And his instinct made him push her. And since he had just gotten on, the doors were still open. So the spatter fell on the other side of the road because the push was so strong as a defense mechanism. So that's a hard call. I mean, I'm almost thinking that the Asian might even get into more trouble, even if he didn't mean to, just because the physical harm was graver. Is that a correct statement than the spit? No matter how intrusive, and especially with COVID, how unhealthy and disrespectful that is, to spit at someone's face. I think that's like one of the lowest forms, right?
It's dehumanizing.
It's dehumanizing, outside of being unhealthy and unhygienic, right? So talk to me about your thoughts on that. I mean, how do you at least keep this person from being incarcerated? Or is there a defense for that?
Well, as I often do, I'm going to take a little different perspective. There is the woman that did this and the man who reacted. But perhaps and presumably, there were other people around. The question I have is, what about them? What about the power of a bystander to name what just happened? Hey, you just spit on him in a terrible, disrespectful way. I think calling it out is a very important first step.
Yes.
Or to name the reaction, to say, this man is very hurt and upset. And then maybe to be more engaged and active of checking in if he's okay, and then checking whether or not we need to get some kind of subway personnel to take care of this.
Right. Because then again, she obviously was hurt with the fall.
Yes.
But she was the aggressor. Right. And then I believe, if I remember, I saw a clip of it, I believe the other passengers actually helped push her even stronger. It was like, he gave a strong push, and the reason why she fell over is because others did the same thing. So it became a mob reaction. So what to do? Those are bystanders. They felt that was the right thing to do, that emotions are rising.
And that's the challenge. How do we find the best solution to these situations when our emotions are raging? How do
what
we
is the answer?
calm ourselves? Well, I think
we just think about this. You're giving us food for thought, aren't you? There's no right answer.
there's no right answer, but
Excuse me.
I do believe, Thelma, that if more people in the world cultivated peace of mind,
yes,
mindful presence, perhaps spiritual life, if that's important, perhaps we could really create a different kind of energy and control in the face of what's so harsh.
Right, like you said, maybe breathe before you react.
Yeah.
Put in those yoga, meditative practice into action.
It's not an easy thing to do.
It's not, because really we're human.
We're human, but if we had invested in building that capacity before,
Practice, you always
we
say.
may be able to endure a tough moment when it arrives.
You did say that. We're training. Every single day it's practice. But when the time comes and we need to straighten ourselves or control or even do what we need to do in a particular situation.
Can I ask you, what do you do to build presence or groundedness or calm in your own life?
I smile when I don't feel like smiling, even if I don't feel like smiling, because it just helps me get calmer.
Yes.
I try to have empathy. So even if I'm so angry, and I really want to lash out at this person who's aggrieved me or disrespected me, I just say to myself, it's about her and she's having a bad day. There's more to this, because this is not, I try to excuse her. I try to say, she's probably having a rough time in her personal life and she just doesn't have the courage to talk about it. I'm going to hold my tongue, and I'm going to give her 2 days to calm down. I'm not going to react. I'm not going to say anything. She may be upset that I'm not responding. And sure enough, 2 days after, I get a semi-apology. Or she'll say, oh, I'm bringing you lunch or something, some way to. And so I give myself a pat on the back when that happens. Good call, Thelma, because these days, I have to tell you, Jeff, with the heat and with my stresses in life, with the coming of the twins and everything else, my level of stress is in such high gear that I really need to stop sometimes, close my eyes, say a prayer. That's what keeps me calm. And I'm not always successful. I mean, I'm a work in progress myself. But something for you guys to think about. We'll be right back after a few reminders.
Thinking of premeditated violence, perhaps even of killing someone? Your thoughts cannot be ignored or unheard. LifeTarget.org has links to over 400 services ready to help you now. LifeTarget can help you find a proxy, someone always there to help you overcome your thoughts of violence, anger, and hate. Don't let your negative emotions take control. Your loved ones and your community need the positive side of you. You're not alone. LifeTarget has your back.
For those of you who are just tuning in, welcome back to our Stop the Asian Hate campaign, brought to you by a grant from the California State Library in collaboration with the Burlington Community Services and Housing Development. So Jeff, it's been another episode. I just wanted to summarize what we had spoken about. I hope you, dear sender, who refused to give your name, were able to tune in today. For the rest of you, it's every Thursdays, or rather every other Thursdays at 7 p.m. when you can see my dear friend here, Dr. Jeff Ring, and listen to his wealth of information and knowledge. And look at how humble he is, the humility, the stance, the centeredness of this person. Your wife is very lucky to have you, as I'm sure you are very lucky to have your wife. It's just nice. It's just nice to be surrounded by calm, even keel people, especially with this life and everything that it throws at you.
You know, Thelma, you said two things that I think are really important. First, you said you're a work in progress, and I think we should all admit that. It's a kind of humility and honesty. And then second, you just made this observation that it's harder to be our best selves when we're under stress. And frankly, who among us has escaped the stress? The stress of COVID, the stress of difficult financial times,
Yes.
the stress of global warming. And so
And the stress of the elections.
And the elections, all of it. And so we're going to have to, I think, as human beings, do double work in finding ways to navigate our differences, to navigate the breaches that really have fragmented our society.
And with that, Jeff, it's only been a few days since we lost the Queen. We would like to thank the entire royal family for the service of the Queen all these years. And we do join you in prayer and condoling with you during this rather trying times. This brings to a close our weekly episode here on the Stop the Asian Hate program, brought to you by a grant from the California State Library in collaboration with the Burlington Community Services and Housing Development. I'm your host, Thelma Sugay, who together with my trusted cameraman, Nikki Ariola, we wish you both well, and we will see you next week here on Pinay Inside on Pinay TV. Ciao.